Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Paul Graney. Here today's top stories. Protesters in Seattle are occupying part of this city that includes an abandoned police precinct building. They have a long list of demands. A senior White House economic advisor and the Treasury Secretary say American workers likely need another round of funds. But both agree getting people back to work and helping businesses reopen is the priority. Outdoor dining returns to San Francisco, but customers will need to follow new safety rules and wear a mask until seated. And Twitter announced it has deleted over 170,000 fake accounts in a network backed by the Chinese regime. This is the second purge in less than a year. Protesters in Seattle have taken over a section of the city. This includes a police precinct building abandoned by local law enforcement. The police chief later returned to the facility but found someone had broken in and caused damage. The chief reports that emergency calls have more than tripled in the zone, many for violent crimes like rapes and robberies, but police weren't able to respond.
Protesters and far-left activists have occupied a 6-block area in Seattle, Washington by barricading streets to block off vehicle traffic. The area is known as the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. Seattle police report that people with guns are checking the IDs of people trying to enter the area at several checkpoints. People gathered in the street to listen to speeches in front of a banner that reads, "This space is now property of the Seattle people." Signs on nearby street barricades declare, "You are entering Free Capitol Hill," and "You are now leaving the USA." The protesters have a long list of demands, including completely abolishing the Seattle Police Department and its attached court system. Seattle police abandoned the city's East Precinct building Monday night amid increasing protests over the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis police custody. The precinct building is located within the occupied zone.
So fly your flag.
A resident who supports the protests expressed concern over what will happen now that the officers are no longer at their posts. Police officials report businesses and individuals have been asked to pay a fee to operate in the area. The assistant chief of police says this would be considered extortion. President Trump wrote on Twitter that Washington Governor Jay Inslee and Seattle's mayor are being taunted and played at a level that our great country has never seen before. Trump told the two of them to take back their city from what he called anarchists, adding that if they don't, he will. Inslee responded to a question about the autonomous zone on Wednesday, saying, "While that's news to me," he explained that he hadn't heard about it from any credible source. On Thursday, Seattle Police Chief Carmen Best was seen walking past protesters and re-entering the abandoned precinct building with a troop of officers. Kevin Hogan, NTD News.
A senior White House economic advisor and the Treasury Secretary agree it's too soon for the government to put the brakes on supporting the economy. But they say increased employment as more states open will accelerate the rebound.
Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said he's prepared to ask Congress for more funding to stimulate the economy and support the American worker.
And then the question of what form it takes is something that the president's willing to negotiate with Congress.
The market has screeched higher for more than 2 months at a pace that exceeded many people's expectations. But it pulled back on Thursday as the Dow Jones Industrial Average sank more than 1,800 points and the S&P 500 dropped 5.9%. Hassett said the economy is limited until more states open their businesses back up. Mnuchin said in a CNBC interview on Thursday that local and state governments should not close down businesses and schools if there is another CCP virus outbreak. He said the lesson learned is that shutting down the economy creates more damage, and not just economic damage, but also in other areas like medical problems being put on hold. Mnuchin said his focus is working with President Trump to get people back to work. May's jobs report reflected a move in that direction, showing a net gain of 2.5 million jobs, a shift expected to ramp up the economy considerably.
I think that if the June number is better than the May number in the jobs report, then the Fed's outlook is going to, ramp up and improve dramatically.
Mnuchin suggested a bill is needed to encourage businesses to rehire people, especially in industries that have been most impacted. He said the bolstered unemployment insurance will most likely be done away with.
Some restaurants in San Francisco will take another step forward today when the city allows outdoor seating for the first time since March.
San Francisco is gearing up to dine outside once again as the city permits outdoor seating for the first time since ordering people to stay inside their homes in March. The restrictions on restaurants will be lifted on Friday, but rules will remain in place, including limiting tables to 6 customers except for members of the same household. Customers will have to wear face masks until they are seated, and there will be limited access to entering the restaurant except for placing an order. Head chef and owner of Canela Bistro, Matt Schuster, says he was overjoyed with the news.
We have regulars who have been emailing us, asking us when we're opening, and they've been the first ones to make reservations. So it's like, we're in a neighborhood. We've been here for 9 years, so we have a very strong support within our network here. And so we're excited to see them. They're excited to see us.
The question is whether customers will feel comfortable to come out and dine in public. While it may still be some time before the buzz of full capacity returns to restaurant dining, many welcome this step forward.
And some good news for New York shoppers. Fifth Avenue stores are open again.
New York City Fifth Avenue shops started reopening Thursday with curbside service. Customers are glad to be back, even though they can't roam around the store on their own yet.
It's about time, and it's better than nothing.
How's the experience?
It was quite nice. Quite nice. I have a personal shopper, and she met me out here and showed me something that I might be interested in, and it will be sent to me.
Employees and customers have to wear face coverings, and stores are limited to 50% capacity. Customers say it's going well.
I came out to return a few items, and I think that the process right now is easy. You just come up to the front, you speak to a representative, they take your information, your receipt, and you'll be on your way back home.
Many are here to return things they ordered online.
We're here for returning some stuff that we ordered online.
How's the experience so far?
I think convenient, not too bad. I was there's some wait which is making it a little inconvenient, but otherwise I think they're doing a great job at the returns.
Many businesses were threatened by looting during the riots. Some are still boarded up. The Fifth Avenue Association has a list of stores that are open. In-store retail will start during Phase 2 of reopening.
After weeks of uncertainty, Republicans have decided on a new location to award the party's presidential nomination. But this year's ceremony features a twist and will be the first of its kind.
The Republican National Committee announced Thursday that President Trump will accept his nomination in Jacksonville, Florida. The party signed a contract to host the convention in Charlotte, so they are obligated to hold part of it in North Carolina. That means this year's convention will be unique. Delegates will officially elect Trump in North Carolina, but he'll accept it in Florida, hundreds of miles away. North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper would not commit to allowing a large-scale event, citing virus concerns, so convention organizers started looking for alternative locations. Like North Carolina, Florida is another critical battleground state. Trump carried Duval County, where Jacksonville is, by a little more than 1 percentage point in 2016, but neighboring St. Johns County is deep red Trump territory. In 2016, he carried it by over 30 percentage points. Jacksonville was one of the top picks after the Republican National Committee started searching for a new location. Republicans control both the state and city government. The city's Republican mayor pitched the city last week. Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis says the state is ready to host the event.
Tokyo Olympics organizers have secured a majority of the venues needed for the postponed Summer Games, but negotiations are still underway.
The Tokyo Olympics organizers announced that a majority of the venues required to run a successful Olympics have been secured. The Olympics were supposed to start next month before the CCP virus pandemic delayed the Summer Games until next year.
Adjustments still remain, but we are able to use 80% of the facilities that were originally supposed to be used last year.
The original plan for the Olympics included 43 venues. 8 sites were built new for the Games. Muto didn't disclose all the venues where negotiations continue, but mentioned that Athletes Village and the Tokyo Big Site Media Center were yet to be fully secured.
Regarding Tokyo Big Site, to be used as the IBC and MPC, it is also Tokyo-owned, but many reservations have already been made by other users for next year.
Organizers have battled an array of problems caused by the postponement, including rising costs and athlete safety. The Athletes' Village promises to be the most complicated venue to the lockdown. Many of the apartments in the newly built complex have already been sold to private buyers for use after the games.
And coming up, popular video conferencing site Zoom shuts down an American human rights group's account after an online meeting commemorating the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre.
Are you tired of newspapers spinning the truth and pushing false narratives? And are you looking for honest coverage of Spygate, the true story of collusion? Or the truth behind the crisis at our southern border? Or how the Chinese Communist Party is working to subvert America and our way of life? Then you need to check out the Epoch Times newspaper. It's independent, nonpartisan, and it doesn't push any political agendas. Just go to readepoch.com and try it yourself for a full month for just $1. You'll absolutely love it.
Twitter is dismantling a network of more than 170,000 fake accounts backed by the Chinese Communist regime. Twitter says the state-backed campaign was manipulating the platform and had violated its policies.
Twitter announced Thursday it removed thousands of accounts backed by the Chinese Communist regime. Almost 2,400 active accounts were suspended for artificially pushing narratives on topics such as the CCP virus. An additional 150,000 state-backed accounts were deleted for their role in amplifying these posts. Twitter researchers determined that these were fake accounts that had links to another state-backed operation that Twitter took down last year. The propaganda campaign also targeted Taiwan and the pro-democracy protest movement in Hong Kong. Twitter said this network was in addition to another Beijing-operated network on Twitter, identified by the U.S. State Department last month. Back in March, a pair of GOP lawmakers urged Twitter to ban scores of accounts for spreading propaganda by the regime. Such propaganda included the claim that the U.S. military was responsible for bringing the virus to China. This accusation was also made by a senior Chinese official. Senator Ben Sasse of Nebraska and Representative Mike Gallagher of Wisconsin wrote the letter to Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey, questioning whether Chinese officials should use the platform when people from China are prohibited from doing so.
The video conferencing company Zoom has come under fire. A human rights group's account was shut down after its online event commemorating the Tiananmen Square massacre. NTD's Juliette Song reports.
Video conferencing giant Zoom shut down the account of one human rights activist group after they held an online event commemorating China's Tiananmen Square crackdown. It touched Chinese authorities' nerves.
Many speakers are based in China. Most of them were arrested or put under control during the meeting. Chen Yunfei was the only person that was able to attend the online event. He was arrested right after.
Chen Yunfei is a human rights activist based in China, where the Tiananmen Square crackdown remains a taboo topic. On June 4, 1989, Chinese troops moved into Tiananmen Square, firing rounds at unarmed protesters who were asking for democracy. Zhou said they chose to use Zoom because the software is not censored in China, and it enabled a Chinese audience to commemorate the crackdown without having to cross China's censorship system. A week after the event, Zhou found the group's account was closed.
We contacted Zoom immediately through all kinds of means, email, phone calls. We contacted the company continuously. We heard nothing from them, and so we had to resort to the media. And later on, many journalists called Zoom.
He said Zoom reinstated the account after news organization Axios reported it on Wednesday.
We never heard from Zoom.
He read the company's response in media reports. It said when a meeting is held across different countries, the participants within those countries are required to comply with their respective local laws.
Their reason is apparently not right. Even if China has its own law, our account is US-based. Our account should not have been shut down.
Other Zoom accounts were shut down as well. They belonged to a pro-democracy Hong Kong activist and a student leader during the Tiananmen Square crackdown. U.S. Senator Josh Hawley wrote a letter to Zoom asking the company to pick a side, American principles and free speech, or short-term global profits and censorship. Reporting by Juliette Song, NTD News.
And coming next, all shops in England are finally allowed to open, but will customers come back? And a ban on large gatherings can't stop Germans from enjoying opera. More after the break.
Viewers have described China Uncensored like The Daily Show, but about China.
At the beginning, I was super excited when I got 500 views, and now the show's grown to about 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. One episode reached 7.9 million people. I'm a little freaked out that that many people have seen my face. In 5 years, I see China Uncensored as the sole source of edutainment worldwide.
Now news from Europe. All shops in England are finally allowed to open, but will customers come back? We head over to NTD UK's Neil Woodrow.
Thanks, Paul. Welcome to NTD UK, bringing you UK and European news. I'm Neil Woodrow. The UK government is relaxing lockdown rules to help the most lonely among us. Adults living alone and single parents can meet friends or family in each other's homes starting this weekend. The government calls this a support bubble. But bubbles are exclusive, meaning once you're in one, you can't switch and form another with a different household. In retail, the UK is allowing all non-essential shops to reopen as lockdown measures are further eased.
The government says retailers have taken extraordinary steps to protect employees and customers ahead of reopening on June 15th. UK's finance minister says people should have no worries about returning to retail stores.
It won't be the same as what we were all used to, and it's an environment that means you can shop in confidence, knowing that it's going to be safe, it's going to keep you and your family safe from a health perspective.
For many retailers, encouraging the public back into their stores is going to be crucial for their survival.
Britain's store-based retail sector outside of food has been severely hit by the lockdown, with several weaker players falling into receivership, causing the loss of thousands of jobs. Tech news. Vodafone and Huawei are turning up the heat on London to reconsider removing Huawei from the nation's 5G network. Vodafone warns that the UK's leadership in 5G will be lost if mobile operators are forced to spend time and money replacing existing equipment. London has designated China-owned Huawei a high-risk vendor. Huawei says it's not controlled by Beijing and is an ordinary employee-owned company. But that case just got harder to make after a Wall Street Journal expose of Huawei founder Ren Zhengfei quoted him telling research staff in 2018 to surge forward, killing as you go, to blaze us a trail of blood. And TikTok, a Chinese video-making app owned by Beijing-based ByteDance, is coming under European scrutiny. The European Data Protection Board is setting up a task force to assess TikTok's data collection methods, security, and privacy risks across the European Union. In the US, TikTok is already banned for military personnel and TSA staff due to national security concerns. The company denies it's controlled by the Chinese regime or there is any risk to user data. In finance, the Bank of England says early signs of recovery in Britain are visible, but warns of long-term damage. The bank's governor, Andrew Bailey, says the initial recovery will be faster than in other recessions as restrictions lift, but warns some businesses won't survive, even with government help, and others may have to change business models. Last month, the Bank of England said economic output could return to pre-crisis levels in the second half of 2021. To France, where the French government is launching a €15 billion, or just over $17 billion rescue plan to save its aerospace industry. France will also invest in green aviation technology to produce carbon-neutral airplanes.
The French government announced the plan, saying 100,000 jobs are directly at stake amid the CCP virus travel slump.
This morning we are declaring a state of emergency to save our aeronautical sector, to make it more competitive, less reliant on carbon in the 21st century.
Of the €15 billion allocated, close to half, or about $8 billion, is to aid Air France and accelerate existing orders for Airbus's aerial refuelling tankers and other military equipment. In order to stay competitive, France will also invest €1.5 billion over 3 years to support research into new green technology.
We will not leave the global aerospace market to China and the United States. France and Europe will keep its share.
The French government will also keep a long-term partial employment plan for the industry, where the government pays a share of wages. The hope is to avoid the loss of high-skilled employees in this sector.
In Germany, the ban of large gatherings can't stop Germans from enjoying their opera. So Deutsche Oper Berlin is taking their performances outdoors, to a location that's a bit unexpected.
Richard Wagner's Das Rheingau by Deutsche Oper is performing this week in the Opera House's parking lot. The surroundings are less lavish than opera goers are used to, with an open-air makeshift stage and seating on plastic chairs.
We shall see how this first performance goes. Since it's sold out, there are already questions why we can't do a few additional performances.
The first show is sold out at just 170 seats to allow for social distancing, and the performance is reduced from its usual 150 minutes to 90 minutes. Tickets cost just €5 or under $6 and can only be bought online.
That's all from us for now. Back to you, Paul.
Thanks, Neil. Still to come, a famous theme park in Denmark is once again welcoming visitors as the country starts to reopen. See its creative social distancing tactics when we return. In France, Paris Zoo has reopened this week after a long shutdown. The shutdown seemed to be easier on the animals than the staff taking care of them. Our France correspondent David Vivez has the story.
They hadn't seen a visitor for 2.5 months after the zoo closed in mid-March due to the CCP virus shutdown. But the 2,000 animals in Paris Zoo greeted visitors this week and heard the sounds of children again in the alleys.
I checked my emails every day to see if it was going to reopen. She used to come once a week, so yes, it is magical.
The zoo welcomed new residents during lockdown. 62 babies were born, including new baboons, orises, and penguins. And all seems to be going well for this ring-tailed lemur mommy, carrying her twins wherever she goes. Birds often mean a species is doing well in the zoo. This family of meerkats has also seen new arrivals during lockdown.
Lockdown started just before the breeding season, so it's normal. Nothing changed for the animals, but having no visitors, not seeing our public, it was hard for the staff.
Paris Zoo is a facility of the French National Museum of Natural History. According to its president, the animals as well as the staff are happy the zoo is open again.
When visitors are gone, life doesn't stop in the zoo. We have to continue our work here. We see that the animals were not stressed, thanks to the great work of the staff.
Visitors must follow new rules, such as keeping to social distancing measures and using hydroalcoholic gel on their hands before entering the zoo. No more than 2,300 visitors will be allowed in at any one time. The zoo expects to fully reopen by the end of June. Report by David Vivez, NTD News, Paris.
A famous landmark in Denmark has started welcoming visitors again too. It's added some creative new safety measures to keep them safe.
The TIVOLI amusement park in Copenhagen opened its doors on Monday after being closed for 2.5 months due to the virus pandemic. The famous landmark had to come up with many creative solutions to help guests keep a safe distance. Teddy bears on every other seat on one of the world's oldest roller coasters ensured distance between the thrill seekers, while TIVOLI employees wore specially decorated plastic shields.
I think it's a great initiative to get the face mask on, because better safe than sorry, you can say.
But the biggest and most impressive change is the phone app that TIVOLI has developed. It helps to ensure that there are no waiting lines or visitor hotspots. The app was developed in only 3 days, but according to visitors, it's working just fine.
I think the app works great. It's easy to use, and you can do anything that you would normally do at the park.
In the app, visitors choose which of the park's 32 rides they'd like a turn on, how many people are in their party, and will be notified when it's their time to ride. It then provides the guest with a code to scan when they enter the ride. On top of keeping them safe, the app prevents long waiting lines that cut into visitors' time inside the park. TIVOLI normally welcomes over 5 million visitors a year, but due to the long closure and limited capacity, visitor numbers this year are expected to be historically low.
We have put up a lot of limitation on ourselves. For instance, our rides, they're fewer, the capacity is down. The restaurants, the capacity is down.
Nonetheless, the people of Denmark are happy to be back at their favorite amusement park and to enjoy the fun rides they missed out on for the past few months.
That's the latest updates for now. Thank you for tuning in. You can catch up again at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Paul Graney.